Happy Black Friday, everybody. Welcome to the Fancounters Celebrity Podcast. Before we get things rolling for this week, I want to make a major announcement. Elizabeth and I are having our first live podcast. On Wednesday night, December the 11th, we will be at the Waukesha Civic Theater in Waukesha, Wisconsin, with country music star Brian White. Brian White will perform a concert for us, and we will have a post-show audience Q&A that you'll get a chance to ask Brian the questions that you've always wanted to hear, and that will air on a future episode of Fancounters. So, to get your tickets for our live Fancounters Celebrity Podcast, Wednesday, December the 11th at the Waukesha Civic Theater, go to waukeshacivictheater.org and get your tickets for our live show with country music star Brian White. Welcome to the Fancounters Celebrity Podcast. My name's Nick.
And I'm Elizabeth.
And you can follow us on Twitter at Fancounters Live. Facebook is Fancounters and Sharpie Nation. And lastly, do not forget, we need those 5-star reviews from you. And you can do that on any podcasting platform. And if you want to say a few good words about Nick and not so nice words about Elizabeth, that would be the place to do it.
Hey, I'm the nice one. I don't watch horror films. I don't spend my entire winter watching Hallmark Christmas Channel.
I do.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do too now.
Yes. Aren't they great this year?
Oh, my gosh. I don't know how this happened. I don't know how this happened.
I know how it happens. Either somebody's looking for love or they're trying to save the town. There's always a great Christmas festival, which you wish was in your hometown, and you wish you knew everybody like by their face and name. And I want to live in one of these towns really bad.
I know, but it's
life
the
is perfect
same
there.
Thing over and over again. And I am a mystery watcher, and I know I'm old, so I watch old things. But on a normal day when it's not Christmas season, I can watch Matlock, Diagnosis Murder, and Murder, She Wrote for hours. And I have them on in the background. I've watched every one of them in the 80s and the 90s, so I don't really need to sit down and watch them. I can have them on the background, and I can hear what's going on and know which episode
and
it is.
let me guess, you could do the same thing with these movies. Is that what you're going to tell me?
No, I got to sit down and watch these darn things.
Yes.
And so I'm not getting anything done because normally, like I said, I can have a Matlock on. I can be at my desk. I can still be doing all the things I normally do. I can hear it in the other room, and I know what murder it is, and I can hear the snippets in court. I don't have to physically see their faces to understand what's going on. But now those are preempted by Hallmark Movies and Mysteries is all Hallmark movies. It's all Lifetime. It's all Christmas movies. Hallmark, every channel is Christmas.
And they started so early this year. I mean, we were into those. The first one on the Hallmark channel was October 26th.
I was going to say before Halloween.
2 months before Christmas.
Right. So I am now trapped watching these. And not only that, but there is a little glimmer of hope where I can get like 2 Murder, She Wrote in a row, but then I have an hour break before MASH starts for me. And so I'm jumping into these darn things halfway into them and still watching them. It's driving me crazy. And it's the same story. It's a small town and a boy and a girl. And somehow I got into these Godwink ones, which are all Kathy Lee Gifford.
Yeah.
And they turn out to be real stories. And so then you're like, oh.
Well, let's talk about the winner and loser so far of these movies, okay?
Okay.
Definite winner for me was the movie Merry and Bright.
Which one was that? About the boy and the girl in the small town.
She's horrible, folks. Try working with her.
I'm just saying.
It's terrible.
Okay.
But the loser of them all so far, Right Before Christmas. It's WRITE, and it's about this woman. I don't remember why I liked Merry and Bright so much, but I do know why I didn't like Right Before Christmas a lot. It was about a woman who wrote letters to various people that have affected her life.
Okay.
One of them was a former boy band singer, but basically they're telling 4 different stories that never come together at the end.
Oh.
4 different stories of people who got these letters, and they never merged. You never find anything out. It was awful. I would skip Right Before Christmas.
Yeah, I don't like things that
So I'm trying to
get resolved.
save you. At least it's one you don't have to watch. It's terrible. You keep waiting for these stories to merge, and they don't. thing just ends. It's garbage.
No good, no good, no good. But there is some very good writing by Cindy Begel.
Cindy Begel, yes. She is a classic television show writer, and you would know her from various shows like Mork and Mindy and Happy Days and
Laverne and Shirley, Give Me a Break, Joni Loves Chachi.
Married with Children. She's got a lot of great stories. She was here with us last week, and we're going to finish our conversation with her right now. And Elizabeth was not here for the interview because it was brought to us by Brian Nelson Jr. He's got the Leave It to Beaver Facebook page, and he's working on some other guests as well. He seems to have more connections than me. What the heck?
I know. That's all right.
Anyway, Cindy's got some great stories today, and I hope you enjoy the wrap-up of the interview.
Here is Cindy Begel.
Coming to you from nowhere near the entertainment capital of the world, this is Fancounters with Nick and Elizabeth on the Podfix Network.
There was this mob of people, and they're screaming my name.
Crazy fans.
Stop following me. Don't come around my house. If you do, the cops are going to be at yours. If I'm having dinner with my wife, don't sit down at my table. Don't follow me into the bathroom. Can I take a picture? Oh, my God.
I think this guy wants to fight me. Ended up being a fan.
I'm the only one that's ever been on Sam Jackson and lived to tell about it.
Well, guess what? I have a big surprise for you.
That's why we call it Fancounters.
I don't think you're going to last on the air very long.
One of my biggest shows on Fancounters was with Tammy Walker, who is the sister of Heather O'Rourke. And we had a great conversation. Yeah. Tammy and I have since become pretty good friends and kept in touch. Mm-hmm. And Brian wrote this on my paper. He's like, make sure you ask, because rumor has it you worked with Heather.
I have a great story about Heather.
Please.
Yeah, there was an episode on the new Leave It to Beaver. I remember what happened was Brian Levant was usually always in casting, and he was directing and couldn't be there. And he asked my partner and I to cast a young girl. I think it was somebody who played a friend of Kelly's. And so we saw a whole lot of young girls, and there was one girl who was an absolute standout. And so we hired her, and we were really, really excited. So the set the next day, they actually read the lines that they're going to be reading. They're not reading something else. They're reading the actual lines. And she was very natural and wonderful. Well, what happened was the next day, or a day or two later, when Brian was directing her, she was horrible, terrible. And he said to us, why? He said, why would you cast this girl? I said, but she was really good. He goes, she's horrible. So overacting, and so we go and we talk to the girl's mother, and the mother said, I've been working with her. So the mother ruined the natural instincts of the girl, and so Brian said, I can't use her, and we need somebody really, really good, and we need somebody very fast, and we need somebody for tomorrow morning. And so he said maybe we could get Heather O'Rourke. So she lived in Big Bear, which was not anywhere near L.A., and she only had that night to come in prepared if she was available. And she was very young. And so she took the job. She showed up. I think the parents drove her from Big Bear, had a very big part, and made no mistakes and was wonderful. And we just never saw any young kid do that. I don't know how she did that. I don't know how she learned those lines that night. So she was wonderful.
Wow. Were you on set with her while she did that? I think she was on 2 episodes.
Yeah.
I know there was a T-shirt making one.
Yeah, I only recall the one episode where I think she played Kelly's friend.
Bad Poetry.
I don't know. What was the name of it?
Was it Bad Poetry?
Bad Poetry was, I remember Wally, right? Wasn't Wally coaches her with a poem? That one, I kind of remember.
Earl Kress, I think, wrote
Yeah, that was his
that.
first sale. I remember Earl. Earl came in to pitch. He had never sold anything, and I remember he had the bluest eyes. I remember thinking, I want to buy something from him. I like his very, very blue eyes, and he had that story, and I'm like, good. I'm so happy that and it was a first sale too, so I was like really happy for Earl. And Earl became a very big animation writer. He's passed away since, But,
yeah, he passed away a couple of years ago. I know someone that knew him personally, and he has he has a show out there on the internet, and that's how I was always been a guy that reads credits. You know, like a lot of people, they don't care about the credits. I study the credit. I love credit reading because I like to see who did what. You know, it's really cool. So, you know, when I did listen to this show, and he made an appearance on the show, I think he was just sitting in, or no, he was one of the call-ins. Actually, it's on the Leave It to Beaver box set. And
really?
It's on the bonus material. And he's actually one of the call-ins, I believe, and talks about.
Wow.
And he mentioned that he worked on Bad Poetry, that he wrote that one. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He did. It was his first sale, is what I remember, and I do remember him. And it came out really good. That might have been the one that I think what it was is, doesn't Kelly cheat? Mm-hmm. She turns in, and then Heather Wally had done a similar thing or something. Also, I can't really remember, but I just remember that she cheats on and then I think her poem is wins, right?
Well, Wally comes in and you know, she's got this poem that she's got due. Wally, to give her ideas, reads her a poem, and she uses that exact poem, but she changes the words
right
to fit her narrative. And Heather recognizes the poem, but you know,
right.
it was about their hometown. So, you know, the original poem had a different town, and Kelly put Mayfield in it instead. And Heather recognized the poem right away. She's not very liked because she's a snobby little girl, so no one really likes her. So she blackmails Kelly into being her friend, doing whatever she wants to do with her all the time. So yeah, that's where that went. And then Kelly was forced to tell the truth because Heather was going to tell on her otherwise, or she'd be tortured into being her friend, supposedly.
Yeah, I only remember her in that episode. She could have been in another one, but I don't recall.
Did you write one of those shows that she was in? Or
I think that with that one, and I think we wrote the teleplay to that, and Earl got credit for story. I think.
I'm not holding you to anything. I was just curious.
Yeah. I mean, that was the season that we produced it, so we would have rewritten everything anyway. You know, that was year 3. Yeah. So, but I remember. Yeah, I do remember that, and I remember that story. And that girl was amazing. I mean, it was tragic what happened to her. She was a real talent and a nice kid too.
I really thought when you were telling me that the mom had overcoached the kid, I was like, wow, you're talking about Heather and, you know, Kathleen overcoaching her and stuff. But then you went a different direction. I was like, oh, okay, good. Because it didn't sound like, you know, that was, I was hoping that wasn't the situation.
I misled you, see?
Good storyteller. See, you should write scripts.
Yeah, that was one of those really weird casting things. So part of the story just came to my mind. I really remembered all these years. And so what happened was when we had that 9-year-old actress that was really terrible, we were told to fire her. And we kept saying, no, you fire her. And everybody kept saying, no, you fire her. Because that's like a pretty unusual thing. Usually when you cast somebody, you don't have them for a few minutes and then fire them.
Right.
So what happened was it was pawned off on I'll just say a producer. I don't want to say who it was. So this guy calls the kid's house and asks, and whoever answers the phone, he says, can I speak to, let's say the kid's name was Tiffany. And the 9-year-old gets on the phone and he says to her, look, I'm really sorry that it didn't work out, but you don't have to come here tomorrow again. And the kid figures out she's being fired and starts crying. And he says to her, you're young, you'll work again. Yeah. He says, so now you could go back. He goes, what were you doing before? She goes, I was eating dinner. He said, okay, so, you know, you could go back now, eating dinner. Remember, you don't come tomorrow.
Wow. They did that right to the kid, not to the parents.
So, yeah. And so then I remember I saying, you should have just told the agent. Oh, yeah. I couldn't have done that.
I could have done that. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Do you know the kid's name?
No, I don't remember, and I have a feeling she never had much of a career. I don't know. The mother, she was a good actress, and the mother ruined it for her.
Well, that's why I was wondering. I wanted to know if she ever worked again.
Yeah, it'll be funny if she became famous, but
Right.
no, I don't know. I knew it's very rare, really, that somebody is fired. And the only other story that I remember of another actor being fired, and it was a disaster, was on the show Alice. They hired somebody. I don't remember why they fired him. I don't remember. But what they did is they called his agent, like you're supposed to do, and fired him, and then hired a new actor. But the agent never got through.
Oh.
So
They showed up.
Show up. And in this story, I could tell you, because I heard this one, that person was Madeline Davis, who was the producer of that. And she had told me that story, and she felt really terrible. She felt horrible. And the guy was near tears going, I really need this job. And the other actor was standing on the stage. He goes, please don't fire me. He was begging her, please don't fire me. So that's the other story that was a really good firing story.
I bet you have a lot more. We probably could do a whole nother additional hour on this show.
They're endless. The show business stories are great, aren't they?
They are.
They're endless. They're really, really, really funny. And the behind-the-scenes stuff is really, really good.
And that's the stuff that we don't always get to hear, so we do appreciate those.
Yeah, sometimes, you can't use the names because the people will mind that it's, that you're telling tales. And most of the time I don't use names, but if I know that I can, I will.
What are you doing these days? Are you still writing?
Yes, I've written a novel, and I'm getting ready to send that out. And I wrote for the Muppet Babies, which is on Disney Channel right now.
Oh, so there's a new version of the Muppet Babies?
You didn't? Oh, yeah. You don't have children, so you don't know that. But
No,
my 7-year-olds have even watched it. It's a little bit too young for them, but I'm like, look, I used to watch this when I was a kid. Well, the younger version, right? And they're like, we don't care. So
Yeah, so I did that.
Do you have any other iconic actors that you've worked with that kind of stand out in your mind as a good or a bad experience?
The bad experiences, I'm not sure I get.
I know. Nobody wants to talk about those.
Anonymously.
You could say, I worked with this one person who...
Yeah. I'm saying the good experiences, yes. The bad experiences, yeah, I don't want to be the one to say. But I'll leave this one anonymous. Leave this one anonymous, but it's still pretty funny. There was... and I don't want to give it away in the description. And it is a famous actress, but she was very, very unhappy with the script. And after the reading, this is a room full of all these writers and producers, and God, there must have been 25 people at least on the staff in this room. They asked her how she liked it, and she said, "Why don't you all go shoot yourselves in the head?"
Whoa.
Wow. That's all.
Yeah, that was really good.
That wasn't part of her.
Good one.
That wasn't part of her character, was it? She wasn't staying in character at the time, was she?
No, she was not.
Wow.
No, she was infuriated.
She sounds like a nice lady.
There was another one that I won't say her name, but we asked her if she had any comments on the script, and she said, "Yeah, it's a real piece of."
Oh no!
Yeah, because, and you know what? In both cases, what's really funny is their parts weren't as big as the other people's. But they never want to say that, and so they say something like that. And on that particular one, what happened was it was a family show, and the studio decided to feature the kids and phase out the parents. They kind of did that on Family Ties. Was one that happened like that, and then the adults are not very happy. It wasn't that; it was a different show.
Sure.
But they don't tell the people. So what happens is they get the script, and suddenly they have a few lines in the beginning of the show, and then they discuss the kids, and then they have a couple of lines, at the end of the show.
Smaller and smaller.
And then they have nothing in the middle, pretty much nothing. So and then the studio will say, don't tell them. But they're going to know that they don't have any lines. They don't tell them. And so, those kind of things would happen too. But I really did get to work with, I think, some of the funniest people in television. Penny Marshall, Robin Williams, Madeline Kahn. George, what's his name? Sherman Hemsley, Linda Lavin.
Vicki Lawrence too, right?
Vicki Lawrence, yeah. So I knew Vicki Lawrence originally from Laverne and Shirley. We had cast her, and she played this the Sergeant Plout, like in the army or something. I think they go off to the army or something. And I became friendly with her. And I was a young writer, and I was really excited. I went to her house, and she had a house that was as big as an elementary school. I remember saying that. I go, this is like an elementary school. It's so big. And I'm not sure she appreciated that. And then what happened was years went by, and we were hired to do A Mama's Family. And we pitched that. That was one that was a freelance. We went in and we had a really good idea for that. And that one the idea was Mama is going to go back to her junior high reunion. I think they had something where they said she didn't graduate high school, so you had to make it. She goes back to her junior high reunion, and that her reputation was she was a hot girl.
Okay.
And that she had a nickname, Hot Pants. And she does not want to go back because she said, they're all going to remember. They're all going to remember what happened. And then she had an incident that happened with a boy who lied about her and told tales about her. And so her friend says, it's 100 years ago. Nobody's going to remember. And the minute she walks in, somebody says, hi, Hot Pants. So they bought it. And it was like perfect for her. And she was very, very funny. And then last time I saw her again, years go by, and we had created a kids show called The Kids from 402. And we just thought maybe she'd say yes and do, a kids thing. And because there's very little money in animation. They don't pay people very much. The budgets are a lot less. And she said yes. So she came in, and she was very funny. And so I've worked with her a bunch of times. I love Vicki Lawrence. She is very funny, and she's very nice. And Madeline Kahn, I don't know if you know who much about Madeline Kahn. That was like Mel Brooks' foil for all of his movies. She was another one that was just amazing. You come across in your career every once in a while somebody who's they make the material so good, really, that you just think you're so lucky to have them saying your words. It's very exciting.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah. So I've been really lucky that I worked in, classic TV because those were the days, especially like the Jeffersons. Those people were so good. A lot of people now, there's so many shows. We're not all watching the same things, and television stars aren't household names. A lot of people will say, "Oh, they're on what show?" But back then there were 3 channels. And
everybody knows the shows. And nowadays, people are like, are you watching this? No. Well, how can you not watch that? Because there's about, 500 other shows that are out there. It's like, I don't even know how you find stuff anymore.
Yeah, so we had common watching experiences.
Right.
That we would, they had millions and millions of people watch, just any episode. Now, probably if they get 1 million, it's probably a lot. I don't know. Young people don't sit in front of the TVs, and they're all watching stuff on their phones, whatever they're watching. And now people are making a lot of content for phones, which is so small.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So they'll watch like 2 hours of YouTube, which is they'll watch maybe 7 or 8 short things of YouTube. They're not watching an episodic story. A lot of times they're just watching YouTube, which is a bunch of,
random garbage.
Yeah. Where they're watching some guy skateboard off a roof, just something where a guy is trying to get some views, just random stuff.
Yeah, and also the thing about children's TV is a lot of the things that you liked about old shows, they won't do anymore because they'll say imitative behavior. Like you brought up, they were hanging Freddie out the window. They would never do that now. So, Mel Brooks recently said political correctness is killing comedy. And it's true because, a lot of, for instance, and I understand why, a lot of old shows, children's shows, they would have fat jokes and kids would laugh at fat jokes. Well, you can't do that anymore. And I'm not saying that they should, but you keep closing off areas of comedy that it's hard to find things to poke fun at.
Right. The political correctness is getting to a point where people take it personally because it's almost like you're talking directly to them, not the character itself. You know.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember there was an episode we did on Mork and Mindy, and so again, nobody cared about political correctness. And there was a point where Mork is running off, hiding for whatever reason, and he goes to a fat farm, which I don't even think I don't even use that phrase anymore. Fat farm, a place that people are there, to lose weight.
Okay.
And so it'd be like a bunch.
Where
of
are we
people,
going here?
And you would go away, and your food would be really limited, and they would have them exercise or whatever. For whatever reason, he goes and hides in this place. So what happens is there was a scene that was written that different people that are very overweight are going to get up and do jokes on themselves. They're going to say, "Oh, my life's been miserable. I'm so fat. My family used me as a pull-out cot. It'll be just or I'll wear a tire chain as a belt. I mean, just was a bunch of these jokes. And so, but what happened was they brought in women that were overweight, and had them read, the parts that they were auditioning for, and it was completely cringeworthy. This is horrible. But nobody changed it. It's still in the show.
Oh, totally. I've never been a fan of political correctness myself, but when I was a child, I would always think of, I thought when I was watching stuff, I always thought of like what went into it to make it. Most kids especially, they're watching the show and they're just watching the story. I always look deeper into that, but
yeah, that's amazing.
As a young kid, it's really weird. Yeah, I don't know, but I always thought, like, how do they cast somebody, especially a child, who, like Lumpy, for instance.
Right.
He was an overweight kid. He was always having fat jokes thrown at him all the time. Writers would write this. He would. Do they read these scripts and a lot of times, and his character kind of, it was a character kind of like Eddie that was not supposed to be a regular character, but he was likable enough where he ended up being a staple of the show. But a lot of times, when you're looking for an actor, you're looking, you have the script and you're in, so they get the script. So when you're looking for an actor, we're looking for an actor who's a heavy set actor, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
This is the storyline of the actor. So they know what they're getting into. So they're gonna go audition.
What? Yeah, they're gonna work because of that.
Totally. Yeah.
Physical attribute is most of the time they're gonna. Again, nowadays it might be different, right? But that is really true. When we would write it, We say, well, they know they're fat. So,
It's not a secret.
So, you could put it in a nice way, and then they're going to do a million fat jokes on them. Because in the Bad News Bears, also my first show, they had Bert, I think it was Engelberg. And in the movie, they did a million fat jokes. In the television show, they did what happens is writers become really blind to that kind of thing, and they're not very sensitive. They're not sensitive because they're not standing there usually watching them shoot it, and they just care if it's funny.
I would think
when they did that casting session with the fat women, the producers came back and said, "This is brutal, guys. Are you sure you really want to go ahead with this?" And it was like, they did go ahead with it.
Well, I think what would happen is that, as a psychological standpoint of it, is they aren't thinking of them, they're thinking of their character. They're playing a character. Their character is a form of themselves, but they don't, to me, I don't think they're for the majority, they're not taking it personal because it's a character that they're playing. So
I'll tell you what's worse. What's worse is, let's say you have a character. This will happen in kids' shows. They won't do it now, probably. And it'll say the ugly girl. So, and it'll be somebody will say, I don't want to go out with her. She's ugly. So how do you write that? Like you said, some kid is going to, so you try to find nice words. It'll say a plain girl.
Or someone who looks like a gopher.
Yeah.
Like that Leave It to Beaver episode where Wally has to find the date for the wallflower, which I never understood that because I didn't really find her not attractive, for someone her age. When I was growing up and I was watching that, like I always thought, she doesn't, she doesn't look too bad. So I never understood that. But yeah, when you're writing a script and you have a certain character in mind and you have to look for that character, I always wondered what it was like for that the person seeing what the description was of the character and then trying out for it.
Well, there was a really good Taxi episode. I don't know if you know the show Taxi.
Yeah, with Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito. Yep.
Okay, good.
Christopher Lloyd.
So there was an episode where Bobby, who plays the actor, has he's always trying to get jobs, and he calls into his service, and that was really before people were using answering machines, I guess. And so he would say to Alex, who was Judd Hirsch, she's got the best voice. Oh my God, I'm in love with her. And so one day, I guess the service called for Bobby, and Alex answers the phone. And he's also just so struck by her voice, he makes a date with her. And so what happens is he goes to pick her up, and she was 100 pounds overweight, and she was very unpleasant on top of it. And so she says, I know you're disappointed. And he said, what makes you think that? And so the episode was about that, where he's very turned off to her. And in the last scene, he says to her, it's not your weight, it's you. The way you act to people is terrible. So, but what happened was I met the actress. She was a friend of a friend. And what happened was, I'm sure it was horrifying to her, and she went and lost, 100 pounds because of that. So the writers were saying, see, we did a good thing for her. But and then they had her come back the following year after she lost the weight, and they had him have a date with her again, and they did a story about that. And I also remember the other story that she told, which was very strange, was that Judd Hirsch sent her a box of candy. I remember she said
Judd Hirsch, him sent the actress a box of candy?
Yeah, correct. The story she told. And said that's like sending an alcoholic, a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
I don't know. She told the story and was not happy about it. But anyway, but again, so you could describe it. It's still going to say she's 100 pounds overweight. It's going to say that or sometimes what you do is you say, you know what, we don't have to really say it, but we're going to be there, when we see them read or something. But there's kind of no way around it. But nowadays, like I'm saying, a lot of the political correctness
Yep.
makes it a lot of areas that you can't do. Sometimes writers are sensitive to some of the stuff. It's like if it's a kid's show and you want somebody to steal, let's say a kid, you want to do a story about stealing, and you think, well, which kid are we going to have? Because does that cast aspersions on whatever person we pick and whatever they are? It's sometimes you think, oh, I don't know, I'm not really sure. So yeah, that does happen.
When you're writing a script and you have several different things happening in a script, how do you go about writing that?
So what you do is you call them the A story, the B story, the C story. So like generally, like if you have shows in front of audiences, definitely you'd always have an A plot and a B plot always. So the A plot is the major plot, and then the B plot is the smaller plot. But sometimes, like in these single camera shows, you're right. You could have something, a bunch of different things, and so you could have a C plot. You usually won't have more than 3 because just in 22 minutes you don't have a lot of time really to develop a lot of plots. So yes, you have to figure out your A. That you just do one plot at a time, and then what you have to also figure out time-wise how they have to fit together, because it has to be at the same time, right? So you can't have something that's happening now and then something that's happening tomorrow. You have to put together plots that sometimes you can't make those two. And sometimes what will happen is there'll be a really good B plot or a C plot, let's say, and then you realize that when you're in the script stage, the story is running too long, so you have to pull that plot out, but you don't throw it out. You just save it for a different show and say, well, maybe we could use that book report plot in this episode. Sometimes that goes on several weeks could go by. Let's see if we could use that plot.
Right. So
yeah, and so you have to find, and you also have to figure out where the people are and how they're interacting, right? If you have 2 different plots, they can't be in both plots at the same time.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, a show that was very good at doing that, great at doing that, would be Seinfeld. Especially in their later years, they had a lot of multiple stories going at the same time. And Friends started to do a lot of that too. And sometimes, it is harder. When you have to weave together a bunch of different stories. But when it works, it's great if you're able to do that.
Especially if it all ties up and fits, so to speak, at the end. It ends
Absolutely.
On a smooth note, totally.
Yeah, and look, there are shows that are better than other shows, definitely. And people, whether it's Friends, again, has had a resurgence. They were really, really good at not only the episode that they were writing, but the bigger arc over the love stories of who's together and who's breaking up. And, the really good shows, will figure that out in advance. Comedies generally don't, but they might have, because they knew they had Rachel and Ross, and whether they wanted to break them up or, I don't really know how plotted they did it in the beginning. But it really helps you if you kind of know year 1 you're going to do this, year 2 it does help. But what happens a lot of times is by accident. You see characters and they have chemistry together, and then you go, oh, let's put them together. That really works. And then sometimes you'll think this isn't working at all, and so a lot of times you'll think, whatever happened to that plot? Well, they just didn't want to do it anymore because it was like, this is terrible. It's not working.
They abandoned it altogether.
It unfolds. Like a lot of times, this is very typical, is when you cast a lot of people that are unknown, you never know who's going to become the star. And that happens in a lot of different shows, that they didn't know Michael J. Fox was going to be a star. He hit very fast. They didn't know the Fonzie character would pop out. They didn't know that. They've had it on dramas in Beverly Hills 90210. They didn't know Dylan was going to, take off, and then you start writing more for those characters.
How did you find our Leave It to Beaver groups, and are you enjoying them?
I'm enjoying them very much. I'm trying to remember how I found them. I have a feeling, and I'm not positive, that it might have just come up. I don't know if it just came up, on like suggested groups. It must have been like that, I think.
Because I think it's fine. I think it's kind of cool that you found the new Leave It to Beaver one. That one's quite a bit smaller. There's only just under 3,000 people in there. The old Leave It to Beaver, there's, almost 14 or 15,000 in there. I think it's getting up there. And then, the new one, it's cool that you found it because you worked on it, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it was suggested for me, but why would Facebook suggest it for me in particular? I'm not
Unless
really sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really weird, kind of scary. But
of how I found it. I don't know anybody on it, so
Facebook knows creepy stuff. Like I got suggested, my neighbor was on there, and it's like, you may know this person. We have no mutual friends, anything like that. But I guess because of proximity, they're like, hey, do you know this person? And it's like, that's just too freaky. You should not know my life this good.
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
My last question is this.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
my last question is, are you in contact with anyone that you've worked with in the past 35, 40 years?
Oh, yeah. A lot of people are my friends. Yeah, the writers definitely stick together. And sometimes, you see them, the people that you aren't. Facebook has helped a lot with that. So I know an awful lot of the same people. And then the other thing that happens is the Writers Guild has a film society, and they screen movies every week. And you see a lot of people that you've worked with, so I see them there. And then the bad part is memorials. You see people with those too.
Yeah.
A lot of those people I'm still in contact with. I would say most of them probably, really. So I know what people are doing. I know what they have done. Yeah, writers kind of do stick together. I think because common experience. We all feel like we were really lucky.
And you get to be close. So you get to be close friends, and then it's kind of like your family. So you do kind of stay in touch because you're close.
And also, it's a job that you spend a lot of hours, especially in those 80s shows. You work from 10 to like 2, 3 in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
So, because it's demanding that you get what would happen on a lot of shows is you would watch them rehearse, and then the network would have notes, and then the studio would have notes, and then the producers would see things that they didn't like, or the actors didn't like it. So you had to write a completely new version for the next day. So, the run through, the rehearsal, if they had it at 6:00, you're going to first have some dinner, and then you're going to stay all night till that gets done. So you end up hearing all kinds of personal stories, and also the art of pitching. Most people draw upon their own lives. Sometimes you're just making up stuff, but they always said the Everybody Loves Raymond episode, that they go on vacation and they come back and they leave their bags at the bottom of the steps, and neither of them will bring it upstairs. Somebody had that story. They said, well, I wouldn't do it and my wife wouldn't do it. So it just stayed at the bottom of the steps. They were very good at making stories out of very tiny things. But you get to really, really know people by spending so much time. And again, a lot of the people I work with on a lot of shows. So, you saw their kids born, or you went to weddings, or, all the life events.
Yeah, you really got involved in their lives because you got to be so close.
Yeah, I went to Gary Marshall's memorial, and all these writers were there, and he gave everybody. It all goes back to him. He was the one that did group writing. He was the one that hired all these people. He's the one that came up with an apprentice writing program. He's the one that would always say life is more important than show business. He thought people's personal connections were more important than anything else. So a lot of people stay together because of people like him and people like Brian Levant, who also has parties and reunions and cares and hires people when he can and remembers every single person that he ever worked with and will keep in touch with them. There aren't, Gary and Brian, there aren't any other people like the two of them, and very nostalgic and care about people, and that's also kept people together too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Brian. I've seen him speak. And he did a thing on the Leave It to Beaver box set, and you could just read his personality. He's got a very fun and cool personality.
Oh, he's amazing. He's very funny and he's very dynamic, and he has great stories. And he's still working. He's doing Police Academy, and I think a remake of that movie. That's what he's doing now. And he loves television. He loves entertainment. He loves it all, and he still does. And he has that excitement when he walks onto a set. I also feel that excitement. Some people, that goes away. I always feel like, wow, I'm just really lucky. This is what I wanted to do. I love doing it. And I still feel like that. And I feel it's a privilege if I could write something. I do it. When I was younger, I probably would never have said, I'll do this for free.
There's actually my first member of the new Leave It to Beaver fan page. His name is Mark Bradley. He worked on the show as a set builder, I believe, and he worked on it when it moved to Florida. And he built the Cleaver houses, and they're really nice replicas. They're miniatures, and they gave him.
Oh wow!
He gave Brian Levant them, and I have an autograph from Brian Levant that a friend got for me, and there's a picture of him holding it up, and in the background, you can see the Still to Beaver script in the background, and you can see the houses that Mark built in the background.
Wow!
Lots of Flintstone stuff, lots of Leave It to Beaver stuff in his office. Very, very cool. Very cool.
There was an episode, and I'll bet you he was involved in it. It was one of my favorite episodes. We wrote this particular one. It was an idea. They were all Brian. It was all Brian's ideas. It was called Man's Greatest Achievement.
That was one of the last ones. Great one. Yeah.
It was a great one, and saying even though we wrote it, it was Brian's ideas, no question about it. I don't know. He would come in and he'd say, "I have this idea," and he would have it. I don't know when. Maybe he was driving to work and it came to him. I don't know. And so it was the sets. Remember, there was a gangster, right? Because Oliver has to write a paper. What is man's greatest achievement, right? Isn't that what it is? And the last part of it was it's his imagination, right? But it was a mafia, like a gangster kind of set, and they did a werewolf in a cool, and the room looked really cool, and
Mrs. Cunningham made a cameo appearance in it.
That's right.
Right. Being from Milwaukee, I always enjoyed the Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley stuff because, I'm from Milwaukee, so it's really cool to see stuff. Shotzi beer. That's Schlitz beer. Really,
yeah.
They don't want to pay the royalties to Schlitz.
Yeah, I saw her at where did I see her? I saw her at something maybe a year ago. I'm trying to think of what it was. Some kind of an event at Marion Ross, and she looked great. She's very sharp, and she's still really funny, very charming. I have a special feeling for that because that was my spec scripts were Laverne and Shirley, and then I ended up on that show. The second show I was on Laverne and Shirley. When I wrote it in my class, I had no idea.
Oh, that's like the coolest thing, So.
Yeah, it was a dream, really.
Yeah.
And then what happened was the Bad News Bears, my first show, was canceled, and the producer, Ron Levitt, was put onto Laverne and Shirley, and then asked me if I wanted to work on that. So it was like, I can't believe that. I can't believe that this was my dream.
That's
so it wasn't
way
like
cool.
I did anything to warrant that dream coming true at that point. It was just my dream was, my wish was granted.
Yeah, and it just kind of fell into your lap. That's really neat. So.
Yeah, and it was fun being there. Their readings were great, really fun. I mean, they were all really, really funny, and I just couldn't wait. I was just so excited to go to the new reading and the rehearsals. That was one that was very exciting to me. They were very funny actresses, the two of them.
Thank you very much for your time. We got a lot of good stories and a lot of background. You had a really fun and cool career.
Yeah, for sure. It was really amazing hearing everything you've been able to work on.
Thank you, and it was really nice to talk to both of you because I like that you're fans of television and you're fans of the shows that I'm fans of also, and I was just lucky that I got to work on them. But I feel passion the way you do about those shows. They were funny and the likes of which we won't see again. We'll see different kinds of shows, but we won't see those kind of shows.
Right. It's at a turning point. So, but yeah.
It is.
Cindy, thank you so much. We really appreciate you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Our thanks to Cindy Begel for joining us for 2 weeks, giving us a lot of time on Fan Counters.
Yeah.
Do appreciate that very much.
Seriously, just great stories.
Next week, we are going to go back to the movies. It's an independent movie that's available on Amazon Prime. If you want to watch the movie before we talk to the writer, director, and actor of the movie, it's called She Walks the Woods. Check it out on Amazon Prime, and we will talk to the boys who created the movie next week.
It is a horror film.
That's also code for Elizabeth ain't going to watch it.
Not going to happen, dudes. Not going to do it.
Well, I watched it, and I came up with some very thoughtful questions.
I'm sure it's lovely, but it's not going to happen.
Well, maybe she'll watch it. We'll update you next week. All right, that's it for us on Fan Counters. We hope you have a good week. If you want to email us anything, comments, questions, suggestions, if you have a guest you want to have appear on Fan Counters and you want to come on the show to ask them questions, we'll make it happen. All you have to do is one thing.
Email us at hello@fancounters.com.
Have a great week, everybody.
Hey, give us some 5 stars. We'd appreciate it.
I like Christmas presents, too. If you want to email me for my address, I'll give it to you.
We'll see y'all next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.